Hey there, welcome to my second battle report. This time it's a battle report between Empire of Sonstal and Empire of Sonstal. So in the end you will know that Empire of Sonstal is going to be the winner. Well, my list is the list that you can see now. It's a list that I've been playing quite a lot really. It combines quite a lot of different things of the Empire army book. And I find that it's a very versatile list and it can handle with a lot of different opponents. So it does surprise me in some way because I wouldn't expect it. Well, generally, Empire lists, in my opinion, face the issue of having quite a low mobility, and I try to solve it in this list mostly through the characters. So as you can see, I have Marshal on a Great Griffin, who's an Imperial Prince. With the Witchfire Guard and the Light of Sonstal, because he's the Imperial Prince, and the Lucky Charm. Then we have a Marshal with a Battle Standard Bearer with Black Steel, which gives him a 2+ armor save in combat. Then we have a Wizard Adept on a Great Griffin. So this is the second Griffin in the list with the Locket of Senna, and this character has proven very valuable to me over the battles that I played with it. Then we have a Knight Commander just on a young Griffin, just to walk around and smash stuff. And then we have an Inquisitor. You will see this character not so often, but this setup with Hammer of Witches, Potion of Swiftness and Willow's Ward allows you to have a character with 5 attack, strength 4, with lethal strike and multiple wounds D3. And he's underestimated by a lot of opponents. Then we have a Prelate just with a shield and death warrant. And then we get to the army itself. We have a core setup of 39 heavy infantry with a halberd, 2x support units of 20 heavy infantry, 2x10 light infantry with crossbows. Then we have 4 Knights of the Sun Griffin with the Stalker standard. I also believe that this is just a setup that, well, you need something in your army that can go through terrain, and well, these guys are the best fit. Then we have 5 Imperial Rangers, 2x5 Riders with repeater guns. I prefer these normally over the pistols, just because of the sheer damage output they give when they're stationary, and the small difference if you're outside of 6 inches of your target compared to Riders with brace of pistols. Then we have a mortar and a steam tank to round out the list. So that's the first Empire of Sonstal list. Then we get to the second Empire of Sonstal list. It's a bit of a different list, a bit more static, I would say. Even though, well, if you have so many infantry guys, then you will always have some infantry unit nearby to solve the issue that you're facing. So this list uses a Marshal who's a general with the Imperial Seal. That gets him to leadership 10 and makes him unable to issue a flee response to a charge. Then we have a Marshal with a Battle Standard Bearer with Great Weapon and Black Steel. You might have seen this earlier. And then the Crown of the Wizard King. We have an Inquisitor with the exactly same setup as I use. Yeah, that's kind of indicative of why this setup is good. Then we have a Prelate with also the same setup, except this one has plate armor on top. Then we have a Wizard with also Wizard Adept Divination with an Arcane Engine and Foresight. And then we get to the core. We have 5 blocks of 20 heavy infantry with various equipment like halberds and spears. Then we have 15 light infantry with handguns and a marksman pennant. 26 Imperial Guard with great weapons and a banner of relentless company. 24 Imperial Guards with the household standard, 5 Riders with a brace of pistols, 2 cannons and a volley gun. So as you can see in this list, only the Imperial Guard are the parent units in the list, and the rest is mostly support units. So the main weakness of this list in my view is that if you knock out one of the 2 Imperial Guard blocks, which most armies will be able to do if they just focus their fire, then it will start to fall apart. But still, it's a funny infantry themed Empire list. So that's for the lists. Now you can see an army picture of the first army that's going to be playing. I took for magic for the divination wizard Scrying and the Stars Align. Normally I would go for a more offensive missile kind of set of spells, but I wanted to try this out for once. And in addition to these spells, I of course have the blessings of the warrior priest. Then you can see the army picture of the second army. This army has a bit more magic, as you can see if we go to the spells. Yeah, so this Druidism spell was the one that he rolled for the Crown of the Wizard King, and then for his mage he selected Scrying and Quicksilver Lash, and well, Ice and Fire is on the Arcane Engine, and obviously he also has the Warrior Priest spells for his army. So then for the battle itself, we played the Refused Flank deployment with the Breakthrough secondary objective. As you can see, we already picked table sides here. My opponent was allowed to pick the table side, and he went for the side in the top right with the hill. Further with regards to terrain, on the top left we have some ruins, in the left center we have a forest, and down from there we have a wall. In the middle of the table we have a set of buildings which count as impossible. Then to the right of that is also a small wall. And then on the bottom of the screen you can still see a hill in the middle of the board, and the forest to the right. So we both play Empire lists quite regularly, and we know kind of how to deal with them, both of us. So I was thinking about being very aggressive and pushing him. Trying to push him off the board as soon as I saw that he deployed his Pistoliers on the top right, because I was afraid that he would just hold back and not come at me and try to just not lose any of his units. And placing his Pistoliers on the top right in the position where they are doesn't allow his army anymore to deploy as much back as I had anticipated. So at this point already I decided to drop everything. In hindsight this was a very, very bad move on my behalf. But what I also thought at the time is that with my Reiter units, the ones with the repeater guns, I could, like this Vanguard, 12 inches, have one unit sit in the forest, have one unit sit behind the wall, and hopefully shoot at his handgunners. Because if I get in the first volley of these Reiters, they don't count as having moved after they've vanguarded, so they just have to shoot at long range on 5s. So that's a total of 30 shots hitting on 5s, 10 hits. It's about 8 wounds, 7 wounds on the handgunners, which will severely hamper the performance of that unit for the rest of the game, meaning that I will have advantage shooting wise. So how did I deploy? As you can see, I put the Knights of the Sun Griffin close to the ruins because they have the Stalker standard anyway, and I have to deal with that part of the table too. Then I put the Griffins close to the building so that I can advance and get cover from the cannons. Also, I can also use the Knights of the Sun Griffin to screen my Griffins from the cannons. Then shamefully you don't really see all of the board again, so I'll really fix it the next time. So next to the Griffins you see the Halberdiers, parent unit with a support unit next to them, then some Reiters. The steam tank is behind the Reiters, and then the Reiters will still vanguard away, so the steam tank has a chance to advance with his random movement. Then on the hill you can still see the mortar, and then further down the table are just some crossbowmen and some Reiters. Then for my opponent, he, well, as I already expected, set up quite defensively, going backwards as much as he could. So he kind of encloses his Reiters in this way, and they cannot really get out of the square of the table. So that is a bit of an advantage for me. But well, I should really not have just deployed everything at once. because I don't get any advantage from doing so other than being guaranteed the first turn. And I already knew that this was going to be his deployment, just a line of bricks really. You can see his Imperial Guard with great weapons to the top left of the hill. It's the unit of 25 guys more or less. And then the Imperial Guard with hand weapon shield are on the hill. It's the lower of the two units. But also because I deployed everything at once, he was able to put his Inquisitor in the greatswords with the great weapons, which has multiple wounds, which is good against only just the Knights of the Sun Griffin, basically, so you can effectively counter them. Yeah, and I think in hindsight I should have tried to take the first turn to take out some of his vital shooting, were it handgunners, were it maybe a cannon, just to focus fire with everything, like the steam tank, the mortar even, the Reiters, all of it. But I didn't, which, well, was my first mistake of this game, and maybe many more will follow, you'll see. So this is the Vanguard move that I'm doing. We're shaking hands to confirm that we're going to have a nice battle, and then it's off. So I do as I declared earlier. I'm moving up the Reiters with their Vanguard so that they can shoot at the light infantry unit, which is the unit that is in front of the Reiters to the top right of the screen, the unit of 15 guys. And yeah, I was considering whether I should advance towards him or not, but my deployment, as it was laid down, kind of forced me to go for it, because I don't really have the mobility to back up and still maintain a good battle line. Like my army will arrive in pieces, basically, the way that I deployed. Especially the steam tank was also badly deployed. It should either have been even more to the right to cover the flank, or be kept on an overwatch position to be able to shoot cannons and just, well, serve as a cannon for this battle, because my opponent doesn't really have any other interesting targets for this unit other than holding up some infantry. But with the amount of cannons that my opponent has, so he has one cannon back just at the back of the Reiters, and he has another cannon facing basically my Knights of the Sun Griffin, so you can barely see it on the picture, but it's behind the Imperial Guard block with the great weapons to the middle of the table. So this is my turn 1 movement. Both of my Griffins are covered from cannon shooting, either by the building or by the Knights of the Sun Griffin. My main infantry block just moved up a bit, still out of charge distance for his units. And well, I cast some magic. The magic that I cast is, I believe, ward save in melee combat for the halberd block. It doesn't really matter. Just to try and draw out some dice and reroll to hit on the Reiters. And then we proceed to shoot at the handgunners, and as you can see, I kind of rip apart this unit, leaving only 5 guys left. So this unit is not going to be effective for the rest of the game anymore, which in my mind is a very, very important step against an Empire army like this. If you leave the missile units that they have to shoot, they're going to get accurate orders, they're going to hit you on 4+, if you are not in soft cover, obviously, or hard cover. And they will accumulate a lot of damage over the turns. But these units are very, very vulnerable to counterfire. So I've also seen it that just small units of Raven Cloaks, Grey Watchers, any type of archers can just rip apart these units. Whilst if you don't do so, then they will definitely rip you apart. So then we go over to my opponent's turn. My mortar didn't hit, by the way. So he uses the Banner of the Relentless Company to move up his Imperial Guard with great weapons, almost in the face of my Knights of the Sun Griffin. and I didn't remember that he had this banner on this unit. Otherwise, well, seeing that he had the banner, I shouldn't have moved up so aggressively, because of on the top middle you can still see one of his support units. You can just see a couple of guys from it. And of course this support unit is within 8 inches of his parent unit, and if I charge into his unit he can countercharge with his support unit. So he goes to a static combat res of 3 ranks for his parent unit, 3 for his support unit. He has a charge, he has 2 banners, so that's already 9. Before we start swinging, he has hatred in his great weapon unit because the prelate is in there. He has the Inquisitor with the multiple wounds, lethal strike, and he has fight an extra rank, so he will definitely do a lot of damage also on my Knights of the Sun Griffin. So a charge in there is not really a good option. Yeah, so that was something that I didn't really see coming, because I didn't realize that he had the banner of the Relentless Company. I should have done that differently, that's just definitely true, but this is also part of why my deployment was so bad after all. So then for his shooting, he is shooting around a bit. He shoots at the halberdiers, knocks off a couple of guys, and the cannons, one of them I believe misfired and the other shot at the steam tank. Oh yeah, for magic he did Quicksilver Lash on the steam tank. He rolled an 8 with 3 dice, and I tried to dispel. I roll a 3 with 1 fizzle, so he gets the Quicksilver Lash through. He does 3 wounds on it, and then a cannon goes over it, hits it, does another 3 wounds to it. So it has gotten 6 wounds now out of its 7 wounds. That is very harsh, especially on turn 1. Maybe I shouldn't have prioritized keeping up the cannon with the rest of my battle line, as well it's not gonna do a lot anyway with the 2 cannons on the opposing field and the Quicksilver Lash. Whilst generally I do like still the cannon, even if my opponent has the Quicksilver Lash, because then it's just a machine of 400 points. It still can do something, but limits the magic phase of my opponent practically. Yeah, and that's it for his turn 2. Then for my turn 2, or for his turn 1, sorry. For my turn 2, I have just 1 charge, which is the support unit on the right into his support unit. I figured that, well, it was basically just a sort of Mexican standoff, but whoever gets the charge has an extra combat resolution. So I was just going in there and trying to deal some damage, maybe break him. I wouldn't expect him to break, but I thought I would just clog him up there. And then there's the solution on the problem on the top left. I realized I still had the Imperial Rangers hanging out around the ruins, and I can use them with an 8-inch march to block off the charge of the Imperial Guard. So this was mostly to divert my opponent from thinking that I would hold with the Rangers and then allow him to overrun. I was actually already planning to flee with the Rangers so that he would either have to chase them or make a discipline test to charge the Knights of the Sun Griffin, which would then in turn flee because he only has movement 4. He can go to movement 5 if he wants. But with my 3d6 maximized Swift Stride Flee and his 2d6 charge roll, I should, well, be able to clear the way there, rally, come back, and by the time I come back I have the support unit, which is now to the south of the buildings, with my battle standard bearer and the griffins, to just annihilate his block. Yeah, so what else? Right now nothing is really happening. Well, we're doing magic, okay. So the griffins on the top are deployed such that they both have charges at the war machines. So what you can't see on this picture, well, you can barely see the base, is the base of the cannon. So that's on the top, a bit off to the right in the middle. Next to the cannon was the Hellblaster. To a lot of people, the Hellblaster would be very scary, I think. But if you factor in that half of the time it rolls one of its dice as a 6, it has a -1 to hit. I'm still at more than 12 inches, so it normally would be a 4+ to hit. With -1 from the range, it would be a 5+. With -1 from a 6 on the 2 hit on the amount of shots roll, it would be 6s. And then it does about like 3 or 4 hits. It has strength 5, is 2 wounds. I can survive with getting 2 wounds on either character. Well, my Imperial Prince still has a 2+ save against this. That becomes a 5+ save, so I might even save one. But getting rid of the War Machine is definitely worth getting 2 wounds on either Griffin for me. So it doesn't shoot that hard if it's not at short range without rolling a 6 for its amount of hit. And if it doesn't roll the amount of a 6 on the amount of hits, then it's also gonna mean that it doesn't do a lot of hits because, well, you don't roll a 6 to hit. Yeah, so what else happens? As you can see, the infantry on the right managed to do enough wounds to break actually the enemy unit, which is quite remarkable because his general is in the Imperial Guard block in the middle with leadership 10. And well, he's not steadfast anymore because, well, yeah, of equal ranks, so I believe he ended up having to roll at leadership 7. He failed to roll, and then my infantry get to press onwards, and also his riders flee from the table. And yeah, that was a very unlucky roll for him. Otherwise, for my turn, one thing to note is that the mortar misfired, so there's not going to be any mortar action anymore during this game, which is a big pity because, well, he has so much infantry, and I would so much love to see a mortar hit, just direct hit on any of these infantry blocks, really. Yeah, so yeah, here we go with the Knight of the Sun Griffin. My opponent rolled for his charge, and yeah, he managed to catch up with my Knight of the Sun Griffin. So I rolled a 3, I believe, for the flee move. So this was just terrible. This compensated heavily for the kill that I made on the right on a slight infantry block. Yeah, I was a bit devastated by this because you don't really expect him to move 5 inches further than me whilst I'm on 3d6 maximized roll and he's on 2d6. Yeah, and this also led to my next charge reaction in the center because I didn't have the support block anymore near my heavy infantry to cover their flank, because also the steam tank was badly positioned because I still wanted to use it and I couldn't cover my flank with a support unit. I had to flee at this moment with my parent unit from his charge because, well, even I believe I put on a reroll to wound or something. I put on some blessing of the warrior priest, but I wasn't confident that I would hold against his Imperial Guard combined with a support charge from one of his support units, again going to a combat resolution or a static combat res of about 9. And he has the ranks whilst I'm gonna potentially lose ranks and not have more ranks than him, so I would break anyway. Yeah, so this was the best solution to me, so to allow him to come into the steam tank. He has a great weapon wielding general in that unit, and it's the Imperial Guard with strength 4. So with the general having strength 6, he's gonna have 2 hits, he's gonna do 1 wound, it's gonna be 50-50 whether I save that. It's gonna be likely that maybe the Imperial Guard do a wound, but if they don't, then I'm gonna be unbreakable, obviously, and I'm gonna, well, have a breath weapon 2d6 and grinding attacks 3d6. I'm gonna grind down the unit, yeah, quite considerably. Yeah, so this, well, would not be too bad if I were to get the chance to grind on this Imperial Guard unit. For the rest, he just moves up the Arcane Engine that I currently also don't really have an answer to, because my steam tank's practically out of the game, the mortar's out of the game already. and the Reiters, they're still on the table, but shooting at a toughness 5, 4, 5 wound model with 3+ armor save is not the ideal target for these guys either. Practically they have better things to do. Yeah, so that's for his movement. And then after we go to combat, and he does manage to kill my tank, my Reiters break away and flee, and he gets to reform. So that's a bit sad, obviously, but it was more than 50% chance for him to manage it. But oh well, we'll just have to live with it. So there's a couple of things in this game so far that have gone wrong for me. So first off, we have to roll for the Quicksilver Lash. That, well, I could have thrown more dice than 3 dice to try and dispel it on an 8, but I just used 3 dice. Maybe I should have used more, because the rest of his magic wasn't that consequential either. And also, obviously, the fault with the Knights of the Sun Griffin. But both these mistakes derived from my deployment, really, and not recognizing that he had the banner of the Relentless Company on the Imperial Guard block with great weapons. So then for my turn, he also shot with his Hellblaster at one of the Griffins, and he didn't manage to do any wound at all, I believe. Yeah, so that's how effective a Hellblaster is at long range. And then, for my turn, the Griffins both find their target. The Wizard charges into a heavy infantry block. Some people might think that this is a bit of a daunting and bit of an enthusiastic move, but actually I'm still on a Griffin, so I cause fear. I have 4 attacks at a high weapon skill with strength 6 and 1 attack at strength 3. Yay! So I'm perfectly able to do quite some wounds on there, and just casually grind down the unit. And once I get free from combat, it might be on a turn where I'm able to charge a cannon next, and like this I'm also protected from the cannons. Even though the cannon that you can now see to the top left of the picture was the cannon that had a misfire already earlier and was shut down for the rest of the game. And the other Griffin, the General Griffin, goes into the Hellblaster and it's going to fly off the table. Then we reform the heavy infantry such that we can take a charge from his great weapon guys and put on some blessings and brace for impact for fight an extra rank. Basically, me and my opponent are doing the same here. We're just buffing our units up to the point where the enemy can't charge into them confidently, because we still have to do our own magic phase at that point. Yeah, it's Empire versus Empire. If you don't have any support with it, then you just get blocks that you can buff in your own magic phase, but you don't know what comes out. And yeah, we're both not confident that we will manage to break through in one turn, so we don't dare to charge the other person. Then the Reiters, I believed that I had to use these to chaff up his Imperial Guard with General and use the BSB with his infantry to catch his support unit charges. I thought this was like the only way that I could protect the flank of my heavy infantry block, my parent block. And then we see that the Griffin who went into combat with the heavy infantry of my opponent doesn't manage to do anything. I believe he does a single wound and that's it, and then he breaks from combat. So that was kind of sad. I don't remember why my opponent didn't choose to pursue. Yeah, I don't remember. I believe he was concerned about being stuck in the ruins and me being able to charge his support unit with my Imperial Rangers, so that he could not declare support charge after my heavy infantry with Warrior Priest and Inquisitor would charge his great weapon Imperial Guard with Inquisitor and Prelate. yeah, so that's what you get with Empire. You get these decisions that you have to make that are sometimes a bit different than from other armies, because it gets a bit more complicated with this parent and support system if you really make use of it. And I think it's well, obviously my army doesn't use the parent and support system in this army to a very high extent, but yeah, if you really are good in making use of this parent support system, you can do a lot of stuff with it. And as you can see in the army of my opponent, he just has 2 parent units and a lot of support units. I think that's also the way it works best. Up to the point where you encounter someone who is able to just knock off one of your parent units, and then your support units suddenly turn to rubbish, because, well, in your parent unit you also have the order, the character that can give the order, and also without the parent unit you just fight in 2 ranks instead of 3 ranks with your support units. You don't get the combat res. Everything falls to pieces once the parent units are gone. So in this army he has 2 parent units. I might be tempted to put in a 3rd parent unit, maybe just by putting in an extra spearman somewhere, or just to be able to make use of this parent support unit a little bit more, just in case things go wrong, like a mortar hit falls on your Imperial Guard turn 1 or something. Because if you get down to like 10 guys, it's going to be tricky. But on the other hand, your Imperial Guard will always be stubborn as long as there's 1 character in them, and having characters in there with 1+ armor saves and then multiple characters is definitely the way to go there. So for the rest, what is happening? So he charged in with his 2 support units and his wizard on Arcane Engine into my support unit. My support unit is within 8 inches of my parent unit with a lot of ranks, so I'm going to be stat fast unless he manages to kill 16 infantrymen, because then I'll still have a rank. And my BSB is also in there. So, well, that unit is not going anywhere, basically. So my champion issues a challenge at this point to catch the impact hits of the Arcane Engine. And, while my opponent starts rolling his dice, he put Brace for Impact on his support unit, and he's within 8 inches of his parent unit, so he gets to attack with all 20 of his halberd equipped heavy infantry. And he manages to do a couple of wounds here, about 5 wounds I believe, which is fine by me. I'm just stat fast. I'm just there to hold up his advance until my Griffins come back, was my thought, before my Griffin actually broke from the heavy infantry support unit. So maybe I was a bit optimistic there, but well, seeing how it was, he would have to test for his heavy infantry twice on leadership 7 against my Griffin if he managed to win the combat, which would be reduced to leadership 6 because my Griffin causes fear. So I would say that it was a good guess, a good estimate of mine to do it this way. Well, you gotta row with the boat that you have, right? I don't know if this expression translates to English, but in Dutch we say that you have to row with the oars that you have, basically. So that makes maybe more sense in Dutch than in English, but whatever. Here you can see me. It's my turn again, so we managed to hold the charge against the Arcane Engine and the support unit. I also managed to countercharge with my crossbowmen into the Arcane Engine. They were also still left on the hill, and they're not really going to be influential in the rest of the battle if they don't just get in combat, actually. Which is funny, because these crossbowmen, I just used them to snip off a couple of wounds on units that are going to be annoying, like fast cav and stuff, and then for the rest of the game I just use them to countercharge mostly, even though their stats are just awful, but they they do provide a charge, they do provide a rank. It's often in the flank, and then it's a big flank because you have a rank. Unless someone manages to knock off a crossbowman, which also obviously quite often happens, but still you get some combat rest of it, and it's a support block, so if you have a parent unit within 8 inches, it's not going to go anywhere if you have a lot of ranks in your parent unit. And otherwise I redeploy my heavy infantry to be wider. This is something I felt like I had to do because my general was out of range to put an order on them, because he can only do it within his inspiring presence range, which for him is 18 inches because he's on Griffin. And my BSB was also out of range to do this. So without fighting an extra rank, I don't think I would be able to hold up against his great weapon guys with hatred and fight an extra rank. Wait, he also doesn't have fight an extra rank at this point, no. But I wasn't really confident that I would be able to withstand his charge otherwise. But this was not very ideal because I don't get my rank bonus, and yeah, I ideally would have put him in a 7 wide formation with the order of fight an extra rank, but I just didn't have it available at the time. And this is also where you can see how this army can fall apart if pieces get too far away from each other, like the general or the BSB. So as a general rule in this army, my BSB with support units, or well, either my BSB should be in the support unit or it should be just in the parent unit and be as close as possible to each other. And normally it works, well, pretty well. But again, I just screwed up the deployment, and I think that's a very big mistake for me in this game, and I should have taken more time to do so. So what else happens? The Griffin, the wizard with the Griffin, did rally, so I can use him not this turn but next turn. But clearly my opponent doesn't really care about it, which is quite fair to say, because my Griffin isn't even able to break anything reliably as long as his units stay within the range of his general. And yeah, for him it's not going too bad actually, because he's just whittling down my units. I still expect my support unit with BSB to hold up one more turn. But this, well, oh yeah, this was impressive. So in this turn he didn't have brace for impact anymore on his heavy infantry, but he did manage to knock off 10 guys or something with his halberdiers. Just 15 attacks, 4s to hit, 3s to wound, 10 wounds. Okay, well, then they're gone. Yeah, so I believe at this point I still have my BSB and 5 guys left in that unit. So that is, well, it is going to shit. And then in his turn he takes the chance to charge the greatswords into my halberd infantry, because he was living a bit by the motto of balls to the wall and just go get them, guys. Because also partially I guess he was curious to see what would happen. At this point I didn't have any orders on them. I just had I cast the wrong spell at this time at them. I was casting the spell and I was like, oh, this was really stupid, because I gave him a reroll to hit with divine attacks whilst there's a prelate in the unit, so I had a reroll to hit anyway. And then my opponent argued that, well, it would be useful for later turns, and I was like, yeah, I know, but then I have to cast magic again, so it's gonna go away again, so it was really useless. So I should have tried to put on scrying. I did try to put on the 5+ ward save, but he dispelled it. Yeah, that was yet another mistake by me. Yay! Yeah, this was a battle full of mistakes to my mind. Yeah, so it's moving up like this, and well, by this point he doesn't have a lot of shooting anymore. He doesn't have a lot of magic to do. He does some, but that's okay. So what happens here in combat? yeah, my BSB gets stuck in a challenge with his character with Locket of Sana. But as far as Empire characters go, his characteristics are still quite shit. So my opponent gets 3 attacks at strength 4 at my character, which now has toughness 3 from his wizard. Oh no. So he hits me on 3s because of lightning reflexes. He wounds me on 3s because of strength 4 against toughness 3. And I have a 2+ armor save, which becomes a 3+. With his 3 attacks and then 2 attacks from his mount, he managed to kill my character. The 3 wounds, whilst I have a 1+ armor save against his horses. Yeah, this was a yeah. Well, never mind that. But the funny thing was that I repaid him with a discipline text on my infantry, and I managed to pass the test. So it was like a -5 or something, but they stuck on a 4 because of the general being nearby. Then for the combat with the great swords, as you can see, my unit goes to town on him because he gets to strike last, as he has great swords and no lightning reflexes over there. So I do about 8 wounds, I think, or 10. Yeah, that's what I believe. This was the round where I had 19 attacks with my halberdiers and I managed to do 19 wounds. So you should keep in mind that I have a reroll to hit. I have battle focus. So the 19 hits should actually, or the 19 attacks should actually go to 19 hits statistically. But then the 2 wounds roll was just like everything was 3 up. So that was quite impressive. I should have lost about 6 wounds there, but I didn't. So that was good for me. We managed to stick in combat. Nothing moves there. Then my Griffin goes into the rear of this unit, ready to munch on some great swords. The other Griffin goes into the side of the Arcane Engine. He has the Locket of Sana, but frankly I don't really care with the Griffin, because either he gives my character with Light of Sun style just 1 attack, but then I still have a Griffin with 4 attacks at strength 6. Or I have a Griffin with 1 attack, but then I have 4 attacks with a Rune Fang, hitting him in 3s. So I will manage to do a lot of wounds either way. And then we go to magic. Here I put on a 5+ ward save on my unit and minimized leadership roll and guiding light and scrying, I believe. Yeah. So that's quite a buffed unit. And then the Griffin in the rear is also going to munch on some greatswords. By this point, well, this is basically the army that I have left: 2 Griffins and a unit, parent unit. But there is still the Inquisitor and the Prelate, and on this side there's also still an Inquisitor and a Prelate. Yeah, that was also a funny thing. We were doing these combats, and I don't exactly remember if his Inquisitor died in the end. I remember, but I don't exactly remember what he died to, what was causing the hit. But my Inquisitor was hacking away at his Prelate for 3-4 combats, and then had a reroll to wound at some point, and then I did so many attacks on his Prelate, and I have 5 attacks each round. I have strength 4 against his toughness 4, which is, well, that's gonna be hampering my wounding, obviously. But I have lethal strike, I have D3 wounds, and he only has an armor save of 3+, which becomes 4+ with my AP1. And I didn't manage to kill him. Yeah, that was a bit annoying, I found. Especially when you have a reroll to wound, obviously, and you don't do anything. Oh yeah, and that was it. At one point I was like, oh my god, this is okay, I'm gonna hit at your Inquisitor with these and these guys. I didn't remember who it was. Maybe it was my Inquisitor. Yeah, it was my Inquisitor. And then I managed to just kill him in 1 round, whilst this Prelate still survived and was still around. And yeah, that's a sturdy Prelate. Next time he's gonna Field and Empire list, he should put in the same prelate. Yeah, so what happens, we clean up the Arcane Engine, and I get an overrun to a position where I'm in clear cannon sight. Yay. We check out his line of sight for his Imperial Guard, because he might be able to charge me in the flank in the place where I didn't manage to break him. Yeah, because my Griffin didn't do any hit, and my heavy infantry also didn't really manage to do anything this turn. So he's stubborn on the leadership of his characters. He doesn't see me with his Imperial Guard, so he instead decides to charge me in the rear with his support unit, and in the side with another support unit. Yeah, so the unit that went into the Griffin is the unit with hand weapon shield. Yeah, it's only strength 3 against the Griffin. It's the same unit that the Griffin had faced before already. But spoiler alert, they already managed to rake it once. And then the other unit, yeah, that's a halberd unit that's going into the flank of my completely buffed up unit. Yeah, so then we go to the magic phase. He once again, he lost his wizard with the Arcane Engine, so he doesn't have a lot of magic anymore. He just has the regeneration, but I have a flaming standard on my heavy infantry unit, so he doesn't. Oh, he puts it on the swordsman to prevent me from killing more of those, so that he would lose the rear bonus. And then we go to combat. Yeah, and as you can see, I still have a Griffin, I still have heavy infantry with halberds, I still have an Inquisitor and a prelate. And in the end I only managed to do, I believe, 4 or 5 wounds on these greatswords. Yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, that was something. I didn't really care about the fact that he was gonna smash me anyway, because of the rear charge, the flank charge, the ranks, the whatever. Yeah, I was just very disappointed with my guys not being able to knock down more than 5 or 6 Imperial Guard in one round. Yeah, and at this point I believe it's the point where we also realize after the combat that he forgot to shoot his cannon. Am I? Oh, this should have been different, because I just see it now that I'm measuring the leadership range from my general to my heavy infantry unit. But of course that should have been wrong if he had shot his cannon at my general and would have killed it. I don't know if this had any effect on the game, because I anyway had a minimized roll on my leadership from Guiding Light and from the order, so I had a double minimized roll. Yeah. Oh yeah, he missed with his cannon anyway. But then it was my turn, and then I failed the march check for my general, and I didn't have any target to charge, so I knew that he was gonna have another go at shooting his cannon at my general, which really sucked. Just a leadership 9 goes to leadership 8 from his musicians, a roll that I failed for marching. If that's the reason you lose your general, it's a bit sad, obviously. Yeah, so for the combat, that's the only thing that's still going on, really. Yeah, we're just hacking away at each other. My support unit of crossbowmen now flanked charged his support unit. So he got into a combat that involves by now 6 units. Yeah, so that was quite funny. But it's only possible with units that are stubborn normally, because otherwise at some point something will drop out and something will get broken. But apparently, well, we just managed to survive in the combat. Yeah, so we get to the combat itself. we start hacking at each other. I managed to clear the entire greatsword unit by now. Oh my god, that was a very, very tough job to do. Yeah, and now my crossbowmen try to smack his halberds. I only managed to do 1 wound. His halberdiers are trying to smack my halberdiers, and they managed to do 5 or 6 wounds, which was extraordinary. And my griffin, once again, well, yeah, he did 1 wound or so. Yeah. So at the end of this combat, he still has this prelate standing there between my griffin and my heavy infantry, and we just managed to stick around, and then I believe this combat, when we counted it out, it actually was a draw, so nobody had to test. And then yeah, at this point it was his turn again. So he had a BSB and he put it well, down from the building, and you can see that you can't really see the base, but it's pointed directly towards the griffin, so he actually can't see my support unit. So the only target he could charge is my griffin, but my griffin still has the Locket of Sana on him, so he would get 1 attack at strength 3 at my griffin at toughness 5. So he elects not to go in. But he does bring in another support unit, which is going to fight an extra rank, obviously, because of the parent unit within 8 inches. And he has steadfast everywhere, he's never going to go anywhere. And then in combat he smacks up my wizard, and yeah, basically yeah, that's the end of my blocks, because we thought that the characters that were in the halberd unit, in my halberd unit, couldn't make way to the side to the support unit of halberdiers, because they were already engaged with the prelate, so they were engaged on multiple sides, so they wouldn't be able to make way to the side, and also wouldn't be able to combat reform because they are engaged on multiple facings. So in the end, he manages to just wipe out all of my units over there, and he forgot at this point after the combat that his cannon hadn't actually shot. So I still allow him to shoot the cannon, because, well, that would have been a very, very sad way of not making use of your cannon. He shoots down my general, and well, this is the end of the battle. So I don't have anything left on the table anymore, which is quite unusual for the list that I was playing. But yeah, occasionally it happens. So for those of you who thought that an Empire heavy infantry focused list is not viable at all, here's the proof that it can actually wreak quite a lot of damage. So it's an interesting list, but I think it's could be not that suitable for just singles tournaments, because it is quite reliant on its infantry, and if you face anything that is quite good at killing infantry, for example the current demons, with all their buffs against scoring units, and if you encounter something that can more reliably than my army that I played now take out your support pieces like the Arcane Engine, like the characters, then you're gonna run into quite some trouble, I believe. And then even though you can obviously generate a lot of combat resolution on the first encounters that you make, once your units get a bit battered up and the enemy gets some kills in, if your units are down to squads of like 10 guys, or well, below 15 basically, you'll only get +1 for your rank bonus. So that is also why you need a lot of these support units. I think it's a nice list. I think it's quite a niche list. So if you happen to have the models, definitely field it and see what happens when you play with it. But yeah, it's not the kind of list that I would play on a singles tournament, just because if you run into the bad matchup, it's gonna ruin your day very badly. Well, that's it for now. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon.